Well, good afternoon. I want to keep my comments brief, but I think you should hear from the legislative body as well. The overriding theme is let's keep calm and carry on. It's from a generation ago, a different set of danger in front of that people, but keeping calm and carrying on is, I think, is really important as we're addressing this issue. I want to focus on what the Senate and I think the legislative bodies will do. Under the advice of medical experts, the Senate's doing its best to model good behavior, limit interactions with larger groups, but still continue the business of the state. I think that's important that we remind folks that we don't intend to close it completely down. We want to say the Senate is open. I believe the House will say that the House is open. We're going to do the people's business, but at the same time, we're going to listen to medical experts about how to do that in a way that's safe. So Minnesota's in a good situation to handle the pandemic. We have a stable budget and an excellent health care system. As I mentioned, Mayo Clinic in the past and the University of Minnesota, the plans that we've already set forth put us in a good spot. We are going to be here to work with the governor. The initial COVID funding bill moved quickly, both the House and Senate passing that. That's not easy to move something like that fast, but it's because we recognize we want to provide resources for the governor to do the things that we need to do. We're not, as I mentioned, we're not closing the Capitol because the people deserve to have their voice heard. We are, however, encouraging people to make their voice heard via phone calls, emails, and smaller groups. Our senators and staff are here to take calls, respond to emails, and help constituents who need assistance. And if somebody does come down, we're going to see them, but typically we're going to ask them to make an appointment to try to make sure that we're mitigating how many people are in there at the same time. The measures we took to limit access in the Senate building was out of caution to our staff and to the public. As you heard from Commissioner Malcolm, the idea of if we have less contact, we flatten that curve. If we flatten that curve, our healthcare providers can take care of the people that are really going to need the help. It's 80 or 90% that I think will barely know that they have this, but for those that it's a life or death situation, we want to make sure that they actually can get the care they need. So by flattening that curve, we have the opportunity to make sure we have all the resources that are necessary for the people that are going to need it. We can still meet the public. We're just limited and keeping the numbers to a smaller group. We haven't had a specific amount, but we just want to make sure we have smaller groups coming in. The hearing rooms in public areas are still open at this time, but again, we want to encourage the public to consider your own circumstances before coming down and think about, if you're not feeling well, we don't really want you there infecting other people. So now that the governor has declared the peacetime emergency, the House and Senate leaders will be meeting within the next few days just to talk about where is it that we want to go, what are the things that we want to get done, and on what pace, because what we all don't know is what we don't know. It's the unknown that we don't know, but we're open to moving some of the bills earlier if we can, and that's where we have to work together, the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, and beyond that, I really can't say more about that part of it because it's only my opinion at this point. So with that, I can take a couple of questions. I'm not the medical expert, but I wanted to let you know what the Senate is going to do and that we expect the Capitol to be open. The main reason that we want the Capitol open and the legislative bodies functioning is we want to work with the governor with this. If we decided that we would go sine die and finish early, then it's up to the governor to make the decisions. We feel like we should be part of some of the decisions that need to be made, and so we want to remain here through the rest of the session.
Senator, with that peacetime emergency order, the governor just laid out a timeline, and there was one aspect that if it went longer than 30 days, the legislature would have to be in to approve that. Does that mean you need to stay in as long as possible, perhaps?
Well, and that's what we're going to talk about. His declaration is 5 days, and then his executive, I forget the title, committee can give him another 30 days. So 35 days from there, the House and Senate have to decide. And so right now that would be within our normal session, even as I've described it. And we have to decide what do we want to do, because we want to be a part of these decisions. We want the governor to have the resources he needs, but we also want the legislative branch to be part of what's going on.
Yeah, do you kind of increase your relevancy by not having to have him call you back by staying in?
Well, we decrease the relevancy of the legislative branch if we finish early and let the governor do everything.
Senator Gazelka, in isolation, a statement you made on television yesterday sounded uncharacteristically, nakedly political. And you said, if we go sine die or stop, then the governor has complete or much more authority and we're not engaged. So I want to make sure we're engaged all the way. Do you want to take another run at that? Because it sort of sounds like you're considering politics instead of public health. And
No, not at all, because it's the legislative branch, which the House is controlled by Democrats, Republicans control the Senate. The fact that we're an equal branch of authority, I don't want to finish early and then let the governor move forward. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's the difference between the two branches of power.
Mr. Leader, the governor is still saying, let's wrap up this bonding bill early. Is that possible, given your differences with him over taxes and that you're going to remain, obviously the legislature is going to remain in operation here through this?
Well, and that's what the four leaders, the House and Senate, Republican and Democrat, are talking about, will continue to talk about. We are having communications with the governor. We all recognize that there may be some benefit to finishing that bill earlier, some tax relief and a few other items that the governor thinks are important or that we think are important. And so that's what we have to hash out in the next few days.
But just to be clear, tax relief in some way, shape, or form would need to be in that bill if you were to finish it early. Would that be correct?
I don't know yet. We'll talk as the four leaders and make that decision. It's important to us that there is some tax relief. The governor's talking about a $1.8 billion general obligation bonding bill. And we think that rather than put that all back into the economy that way, we think you should do some tax relief into the economy instead, a portion of each.
We've been asking you over the past few days about the House's coronavirus priorities legislation, sick time, free testing, expanded powers for the governor. What are the Senate's priorities for coronavirus legislation?
Well, first of all, we're listening to what the CDC is talking about and our healthcare professionals as far as their needs and focusing on those resources. We're not really focused on new policies at this point, just moving forward with what we need to do right now. That doesn't mean there won't be discussions about those things. It's just that that's not our priority at this moment. It's getting the dollars we need into the system and getting the bills done that we need to get done, especially if we have a small window of time to get the big things done. So that's where we're at right now. At this point, I'm not moving forward with any of those things. I've asked the other leaders, let's focus on the things that we all agree on. Let's make sure we get those done, and then we'll deal with the other things after.
Senator, is there any doubt in your mind that the governor has the authority to do what he did today as far as a peacetime declaration, that this is a act of nature?
No, I appreciate that the governor moved forward with that. We were in good communication. Declaring the peacetime emergency gives him some resources that may be needed. So there's no disagreement, I think, among any of the leaders that was a good step for him to take. We just want to make sure that the legislative branch is walking with him in the future steps that he's going to make.
Even in shock, what are your thoughts about the budget surplus we have? Are we going to still have it?
Well, we still have a budget surplus. I mean, yes, the markets went down, most of that, I think, based on fear, and then the decisions that are happening around canceling everything. But I think our economy will bounce back. It's just that we have to figure out where the path is going on this. The surplus is still there, and I think putting some in bonding and doing some tax relief and taking care of some of the basics is still a good idea.
Well, not because, as you know, the budget surplus is a projection at this point based on the economic forecast. It's not necessarily a real number, and there's 16 months left in the budget. In this current cycle, the governor's supplemental budget yesterday leaves $1.2 billion on the bottom line. How hard would you be pushing for tax cuts amid sort of just the rising uncertainty over the U.S. and global economy?
With the same effort that they want to spend money on a bonding bill, you'll see a similar effort related to tax relief. In the end, if we don't agree, it will all stay on the bottom line, and that's not necessarily negative either. But I truly believe the four leaders of the House and Senate and the governor have been working well together. I expect us to do some things that all of Minnesota will benefit from.
So you said the economy would bounce back. How soon, in your mind, is?
I have no idea. You know, it's you know, but just watch some of the people that invest, and when they start putting money in, that means they have confidence. So with that, thank you. I just wanted to give you a brief position where we're at. Thank you.